Okay, everybody, welcome. My name is Gina Redican. I am the Secretary of the Belmont Heights Community Association. This is our meeting, and we have a lovely, wonderful, talented, smart guest speaker, Chuck Liddiard, the founder of the Paratum Scholars, here this evening to help you discover your college, your passion, and your youth. So I want to thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it so much. So hello, is it me you're looking for? I don't think so. I think you're looking for our president, Derek Meska, who could not be here tonight. But if you have any questions regarding the BHCA, please feel free to contact him at the phone number you see, 562-285-3860. Or the best way, honestly, is to email him at president@mybelmontheights.org. Again, that's our president, Derek Meska. With us tonight and co-hosting with me is Will Cullen. He is Vice President of the BHCA. He'll be helping to monitor the chat, and he's going to go over part of this presentation for you as well. So just taking a couple minutes to talk about BHCA stuff. And tonight for the meeting, I just want you to know there are a few members, I mean, not too many tonight, which is good. Maybe we'll get some real, particular questions answered, which will be great. But just be courteous and respectful of others and the presenters. I'm going to keep you guys muted throughout the meeting, and I'm asking you to use the chat box. So if you have a question this evening, just use, if you can, keep yourself muted, use the chat box to type your questions. And we're going for questions this evening and not finances. So appreciate that. Just a quick announcement here of some BHCA stuff we have coming up. Next week, we have a meeting with the new director of Parks and Recreation. I'm literally so excited. You guys get the PNR reference, baby. Also, next up, we have a newsletter. Our next newsletter is coming out as early November. If you don't live in Belmont Heights, but you want to check it out, it's actually great, award-winning. We're very proud of it. You can see all of our articles on our website at www.mybelmontheights.org. After that, we have a couple exciting events, holiday events coming. We have a pumpkin decorating contest for the kids and adults and teens and everybody. And then also we're working on this holiday homes contest, more details to come. But again, go to our website at mybelmontheights.org and you can find out all the fun things that the BHC is doing and putting on. Next up, we have Will is doing this wonderful thing. It is a drive-through food drive. So I'm going to hand it over to Will here. I'm going to unmute you now, Will.
Hey, thank you, Gina. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Just to make sure. Okay. Hey, we're doing this now. We've done it two months in a row. It's the last Saturday of each month. We do put out an email just prior, and we do a lot of Facebooking. But on the last Saturday between 9 and 11 a.m., we are in the parking lot of the Belmont Heights United Methodist Church. And the church there with Reverend Lisa Fitzpatrick is co-sponsoring this drive with us. So every month we ask you to just grab what you can, drive through, give it to us. And every month we pick a different recipient and it goes to a different food bank out there. In addition, we will throw in, just to make every month a little different, we throw in something new that you could bring. Last week, we asked people to bring any stuff that they had from hotels that were personal hygiene items like soaps and shampoos and deodorants, because the kids, the homeless children who are being serviced by the Long Beach Unified School District that are being helped out, the 3,000 of them were really in need of these. And we got a ton of the stuff given to us. So every month we're gonna ask for like a new item that you might have around the house that you can also throw in. So in a nutshell, that's it, Gina, and thank you.
That's wonderful, yes. So we're doing this the last Saturday of each month. So if you missed this past month, we've got one on October 31st. So reverse trick or treat, drop something off for some people in need. We would really appreciate it. Next up, if you live in Belmont Heights, if you own, rent, if your business is in Belmont Heights, think about becoming a member at mybelmontheights.org. It's $30 to become a member. Or if you don't live in Belmont Heights and you just love us so much and want to swag us out with some cash, you can also make a donation at Belmont Heights. Org. Okay, moving on. Let's go to our main presentation with Chuck Liddiard here of the Paratum Scholars. Chuck, I'm going to share, stop my screen, share, and pass it along to you. Thank you, everybody, for listening to me yammer on, and I hope you enjoy the presentation.
Thank you so much, Gina. We'll appreciate you allowing me to be here, and thanks for everyone on a Wednesday at 7 p.m. I don't know if everyone is like me, but Wednesdays are Fridays now. It's can be really exhausting. I'm not the only one that has children that are in Long Beach Unified District schools, and it's, you know, I just wish all of the wellness and health for everyone here as we're navigating through these really unique and crazy times. But really appreciate you giving me 45 minutes to an hour of your time, and hopefully I can bring some value here. And I would imagine that most everyone is here because either they have a son, daughter, grandchild, or maybe a friend that has one of these about to enter the college process or is already there and just needs some more information. So I want to give you share my screen and begin the presentation, and I'm gonna definitely make sure we have some room for questions and answers at the end here, and I think with this size group we can certainly hopefully get all of those answered the best I can. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. This is my contact information. I'll have that here at the end as well. But I want to give you a little bit of background on myself and where I'm coming from. I've lived in Long Beach since 2011. And right at the start of 2012, I began my career in college admissions. I was the very first regional admissions counselor for my alma mater, Virginia Commonwealth University. And I had a master's in education with curriculum and development background, and it was right at the end of the big teacher layoff in Long Beach, and I couldn't get a job. The closest substitute teaching job I could get was in Eagle Rock. And needless to say, when VCU was looking to actually reach out to help promote the college here in California, at the time I was like, sure, I could do this while I'm looking for other opportunities in education. And I really enjoyed the ability to give back to high school students and families and parents and counselors in that regard. But you know, I had to break up with my alma mater because they were only devoting part-time hours for the position, and I took a job at the University of Delaware. And that I still hold that current role. I'm the assistant director of West Coast admissions for the University of Delaware. But yes, I'm based in Long Beach, California, and it's not for a campus in California. It's for students who would like to go out to the University of Delaware. And since that's such a small segment of students here on the West Coast, I noticed a lot of disparities, particularly in the fact that there's such a huge population out here in California. And we have currently the fourth largest counselor to student ratio in the state. It's about 682 to 1. And in that regard, I just working with students, even here in my own backyard of Long Beach, our backyard, that there wasn't a lot of attention, one-on-one attention focused on college advice, college knowledge, college information. And so the goal of the Paratum Scholars and the vision is to help students really just discover their college, but also their future and their path. And I have 8 years of a college admissions background, and hopefully what I present tonight will shed some light on this really daunting and confusing process. So I'll be honest, the topics that I'm going to be going over tonight, I'm going to try to keep it engaging as possible, but I'll let everyone know I'm going to be sharing this presentation with the group, and you'll be emailed this with hyperlinks in here. So normally I wouldn't have this much information on slides, and honestly with all these topics I could present full lengthly on all of them, but I'm going to do the best I can to give you the basic information to hopefully understand the topics. And then at the end where it says resources, I'm going to just show you the resources I'll be sharing with you and highlight a few, but you'll have hyperlinks to them all and you'll be able to learn more at your leisure. And then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So let's just go ahead and get started. And some of the initial questions I always get when I start working with families, consulting with families, talking to them is, hey, you know what? what are the most important things that my son or daughter will need to demonstrate and show colleges, and how is that going to be reviewed holistically? Because they've heard a lot of colleges, specifically in California, and a lot of the private selections do a holistic application review. So what I'm going to share with you, honestly, is a survey results from the professional organization that I'm a part of. And we have over 11,000 members across the country, and we also have an international division too. It's called the National Association of College Admissions Counselors. And keep in mind, this was from 2019, but having had reviewed the State of College Admissions report, where this has come from each year, I don't see this changing much at all, to be honest with you. And this was, and I even consider this post-COVID, that this is going to be very similar to what college admissions offices are going to be considering most important, or possibly little to no importance. And the number one question, and we'll talk about testing later on, is, look, my son or daughter hasn't been able to take an SAT and ACT. How is that going to impact the college admissions process? And speaking from the survey results from the NACAC organization, in general, yeah, I mean, even in a pre-COVID and now, where more colleges and universities are going test optional, there were a lot of us, almost half, weren't even considering test scores as considerably important. As you can see, the top three things here are grades in college prep courses, and your strength in curriculum. There's been a lot of research out there that there's a good predictor of success in college based especially on how a student performs, especially their 12th grade year. So if anything from this here, having your son, daughter, anyone that's going through this college admissions process, and they might be in the last year of high school, focus as much as they can on doing well in their courses. In general, that is going to be the most important part. But as you can see, there's a lot of other factors that may be taken into consideration. And to be honest with you, there's no magic formula across the board that could really, you could just say, hey, this is the checklist that I have to do. Or they'll be looking at for every college or university out there. As you can see on there, there's interviews, portfolios, AP, IB scores. Some universities and colleges really highly look at that, and some don't. So it's all about having some of those individual conversations with the admissions counselors who would read the applications for the particular schools that your sons or daughters go to. Now, I want to focus just on the different types of application systems and deadlines that a lot of seniors and their parents are going to start hearing about. And if there's any parents of juniors in the room here, I want to know this is going to be coming forward here in the next year. So being in the Golden State, we have two main application systems for our four-year colleges: the University of California application. We also have the California State University application. These are separate applications from each other, and you have the ability to apply to multiple UC or Cal State colleges through one application system. I'm going to have some a little bit more information later on the UCs and Cal States regarding the differences between them. But the other things I want to talk about here, there are some other application platforms that have come onto the scene the last 7 or 8 years that are really become quite popular. Pun intended, the most common application besides the UC and Cal State is the Common Application that is put out there. And essentially, if anyone in here remembers the process of applying to college when we were doing it, we had to fill out the demographic information, the transcript information, all that stuff individually for each college or university that we would apply to. But with the Common Application, it's a system that allows students to apply to, right now, close to 1,000 different colleges, not only in the United States, but also there's international schools that are on the Common Application. And that allows the students to fill out all of that personal demographic information just once. It allows all letters of recommendation from high school teachers to counselors to be uploaded once and could be sent to multiple schools. And all the schools on the Common Application have agreed to share an essay prompt there's 8 choices that students can focus their personal statement on, and they have agreed that these 8 prompts have, that they would be more than happy to share that. And so students that fill out that personal statement, that statement will be sent to anybody that's they apply to on the Common application. The coalition is, I don't want to get in the business of college admissions, but it was another organization that wanted a piece of the pie, and they had a focus on wanting to allow students to showcase a portfolio their 4 years by sharing perhaps papers or perhaps their work through what they call the locker. I'm not going to spend much time on the coalition because, in my opinion, a lot of high school counselors do not like it. And I wouldn't be surprised in the next few years if it goes away. But for instance, there was a couple schools like University of Washington, which a lot of West Coast students apply to. They were only coalition only. That's the only way you could apply to them. And University of Florida for a time was University of Maryland. So it is something that you might come across, and it's just very much the same thing as like the Common application. You fill everything out once. The counselor uploads everything once, and then the student chooses where that application goes to. Now, let me say this. The schools that are on the Common application and the Coalition application, where they share the personal statement across different colleges, universities, different colleges may have other requirements on top of that. So individually, certain schools might have additional supplemental essays that they would write specifically for one school. And each school generally has an application fee. So it's not just one application fee for everyone. It's usually one application fee for each school. And there are schools out there that have individual applications. So MIT, Georgetown, there are a few out there that literally they're on their own application platforms. And to be honest with you, there is like the UC system has their own application, the University of Texas system has their own, but a lot of them are also on the Coalition or Common application. If your student is looking at a school that is not, whether it be in California or out, that offers both the Common application or Coalition application, I'm letting you know this right now, it does not matter which one they choose. It's not that one school prefers Common application over Coalition. What I would recommend, if I don't want you to have to do double the work. So if you're filling out an application on the Common application, just continue to apply as many schools as you can with that. And if you're looking at a school that's Coalition only, obviously you're going to have to know that because that requires a little bit more work. Part of organizing the college search and application process is understanding the different deadlines. And I know this all of a sudden turns into some terminology that might be hard to understand, so hopefully I can break this down pretty concisely. There essentially are 5 different types of deadlines for colleges and college universities in the United States and even internationally. Not all of them offer all 5. So again, looking at their admissions website is very, very important. But a lot of times you'll see that schools will offer early decision 2, early action, restrictive early action. So I'm going to focus on these 3 because these tend to be the most complicated. As you can sense by the name, early decision, early action, restrictive early action is pretty much an earlier deadline in the fall that students are going to have to meet to submit their full complete application. As you can see by the PowerPoint bullet points, the main difference between early decision and early action is the fact that if a student applies early decision to a school and is admitted, it is a binding agreement. They have agreed to the fact that if they are admitted, that is the school that they are contractually obligated to attend. So yes, it does require the signature of a parent, also the student, and also a special form to be filled out by the counselor at the school. There is only one school you're allowed to apply to through early decision. As I mentioned earlier, there is early decision 1, early decision 2, meaning that there might be different rounds of early decision for a particular school. One might be early in the fall, the other one might be in the early winter, usually before regular decision. The fact is, students who consider early decision as a potential option for them, a couple of different things I would recommend. They should really want to attend that school. They have done the research. They know that that's that one school that they've had their eyes on ever since they were looking at colleges. Hopefully it meets not only academic, social fit, but also financial fit, because a lot of schools that offer early decision, they may offer need-based aid, but not a lot of them are offering a lot of merit-based aid as well. So it's very important for families to understand through the net price calculator, which is on every college admissions website, on their financial services website, what the overall financial cost over 4 years may be. Because if you get in, you're going to be contractually obligated to go there. And the other thing is, students got to understand too, and also families, if a senior in a high school is really looking for that very first semester of their grades to boost their overall GPA, to articulate to colleges here, maybe an upward grade trend, or just to boost the overall weighted GPA, going early decision or even early action may not be beneficial to them, because the transcripts that are going to be sent in is only going to be indicating grades through the junior year, because the first early decision deadlines coming up actually are in mid-October, but most of them tend to be around November 1st, November 15th. So obviously the colleges will see the courses that they're taking, but they won't have any results. So very important. I'll talk a little bit about the academic profile for colleges in a little bit to find that information. But some other ones, restrictive early action. A lot of the Ivies, Stanford, Yale, have this in the fact that early action, restrictive early action are not binding. It doesn't, you apply early, you're certainly only going to be able to articulate grades through the junior year. But the main difference between restrictive early action and early action is the fact that restrictive early action, again, for more Ivy League selective schools, they only allow you to apply to one REA school. And there are some exceptions. So if sometimes some of these schools allow students to apply for their in-state public school options, or if they have another scholarship opportunity, perhaps through the visual arts or music, they might allow students to apply through there. But in general, you're only applying to one restrictive early action school. A lot of the popular ones in California is Stanford. For early action, again, you're the same restriction in the fact that you're only showcasing your transcripts through the junior year to have that GPA accumulate through there, but you are allowed to apply to multiple early action schools. So again, depending on what schools may be on your son or daughter's list, they may have multiple deadlines, and just understanding hopefully what these terms mean is important. Regular decision is essentially a lot of times after the 1st of January. It could be January 15th, it could be February 1st. But the thing I caution families about is understanding that there could be a regular decision deadline, but there could be a priority financial aid deadline, or perhaps there's deadlines to apply to an honors program or other specific unique programs at a school. So just keeping that in mind. You know, my overall advice, just because I want families and their seniors, their sons and daughters who are seniors, I always try to get students to be 95% done with everything by the Thanksgiving break, because hopefully that'll allow families just enjoy that time with each other. It's the last time your son or daughter is going to be a high school student, and the last thing they're going to want to remember looking back a couple years into college is, man, I missed out on a lot of opportunities to hang out with family or my friends over the winter break because I was working on essays, supplemental essays. And just, you know, so obviously there's a lot of planning, and, you know, students that are seniors now do have to do and make some sacrifices as they balance this out, or they're just going to be crammed over the winter break. Rolling admissions essentially allows students to apply throughout the whole year. So there are schools out there and that will take applications at any time of the year. And there's nothing wrong with those schools. It's just the way they prefer. So I'm not going to go through every bullet point on this slide, but just, you know, in case maybe you just recently moved to California, or perhaps this is your first child going through the process here, I want to let you know the options here in California. So within 2 and 4 year universities and colleges, there's over 261 options here. So probably the most popular, well-known is the flagship University of California system. These are offering not all levels of degrees. There's a high level of graduate programs, bachelor's, and there's 9 campuses. The minimum GPA is 3.0, although I'll show you some profiles later in the resources that it's much, much higher in that regard. The A through G requirements have to be met. And I have a slide that shows what they are, and I'm going to highlight, some parents don't know necessarily what it is, but I will say that the A through G isn't universal all throughout the country. There are other college universities that might have other core academic requirements that go beyond that. So I'm going to highlight that in a second. Remember, the University of California system has their own application system. It opens on August 1st, so students can begin creating their profile, can actually fill out all of their information, and actually choose their 4 personal insight questions to answer. And these are slightly different than the personal statement in that they're shorter essay questions. And they allow you, the best way I can say this is they allow the student to discuss how they are creative, but they're generally not, you can't really be creative in writing these. And unlike the personal statement where you're allowed to really, you have a larger word count, you have different ways to make inferences between different outcomes, different values, different experiences. Here, the personal insight questions, it's almost like a short answer question that a student would get in high school. They literally want to know what they're being asked. And I have links for that later on. There's no letters of recommendation required for the UCs. The one thing I will say this, and I've heard this countless times when I've gone to professional conferences, is even though students have this whole month, November 1st to the 31st, to submit their application, 68% of students apply and submit the last 3 days. So keep that in mind. I would certainly encourage students to apply not the last 3 days, because there has been instances over the years where the UC platforms are down. And I do know that with the Thanksgiving holiday coming up, there's only 1 day, I believe, prior to that deadline, where if there is a problem, reaching these UCs, especially in this remote environment, is going to be next to impossible. Our Cal State systems, they're more regional-based universities. There are some limited master's and doctoral programs there. Again, A through G requirements are part of that. You need to meet those. And in general, the admissions priority is based on the geographic region first for the applicant. So obviously in Long Beach here, we're given a little bit more preferential consideration for applicants who are applying to Cal State Long Beach. We do have, it's a very popular Cal State. There are students from around the state and even in the country that are looking to apply to our Cal States, but the first priority is for the residents in California. And some other popular ones are CSU San Diego, CSU San Luis Obispo. Those are really actually pretty competitive systems. They tend to be a little bit larger in population. They are test optional, as are the UCs. I'll talk about that in a moment, but there is an eligibility index that the Cal States have used in the past where when they did accept test scores, if you had a 3.0 and you were a California resident, you didn't have to submit a test score. But if you had a below a 3.0, using the ACT or SAT, they would have kind of a sliding eligibility index as well. But with it being test optional at this point here, just try to focus on doing the best you can in school. And the submission window will begin here soon, October 1st to the 31st. And our largest system actually is our California Community College system. Over 2 million students a year are spread out between 116 different two-year colleges. And there's actually some really good transfer agreements between the UCs, the Cal States, even the historically Black colleges and universities, and other out-of-state universities. Most notably, and if anyone's considered this, I could connect you, Arizona State has a really good partnership with our California Community College system too. These are the A through G requirements I mentioned. Again, if your students are being counseled in high school, they're going to be in graduating high school, they're going to be meeting these A through G requirements. From my admissions background and knowing the admission priority for selective schools, and also think about what major students might be applying to, going above and beyond the A through Gs in certain areas would certainly make sense. So obviously in California, we're asking students to complete 3 years of math, 2 years of laboratory science, and 2 years of a language. There is sometimes a waiver of that language, but let me go into a little more detail. Most engineering, most STEM programs, more math-focused programs are going to want to hopefully see a pre-calculus or statistics, but a lot of highly selective schools want to see 4 years of math, want to see 3 to 4 years of science, 2 usually of the laboratory science. And I do know, especially for the Ivy League schools, they want to see 4 years of a language. So I do get a lot with my other job at the University of Delaware. I like, look, I only took 1 year of a language, or I stopped taking math after my junior year. But there are certain majors that might be more selective overall for the university. So having those conversations with admissions counselors are important, and especially if you're a junior and you're looking to start, later on in next spring to start scheduling for your senior year. That in general, I would never take that year off. I would, you don't need to take all AP and honors courses, but maybe challenging yourself in areas that make sense for you academically will certainly be important. As they're going to be looking at your senior year curriculum when they evaluate your application. Very quickly, I just want to show you the data with the UCs over the last 3 years, the number of applications that have been coming into the system. It's really, there's a lot of applications coming in, and this year being test optional, I've talked to a lot of counselors and they're going to see that number going up and up. And really, there's no prediction on what it's going to look like. And you can see UCLA, over 108,000 applications last year. That's a little bit down from the last couple of years, but a lot of students are considering staying closer to home. So I really could see that number going much higher this year. So I know I gave you a lot of information here, and I wanted to share the notable admission changes that have happened recently with COVID that might help, especially seniors or parents that have seniors through this process here. And so as of last night when I pulled this here, and I'll share this resource where I got this from later in the resource page. As you can tell, and you probably, if you've been following the news, we've not only have had the UC system declare their test optional policy, but then you also had a federal circuit judge deemed that UCs couldn't use test scores at all. And I believe that a decision is being appealed by the UCs right now. So what I see here and want to share with you the difference between test-free and test optional. Test-free essentially means that they're not even going to allow you to submit a test to the university when you're applying to the UC Berkeley or anyone that says test-free. Test optional means that if you have a score and you want to share it, they will allow you to submit it. But obviously you don't have to. And now, I looked yesterday just for, it wasn't fun actually, it was actually kind of stressful looking at the fact, because I know families have been dealing with this for all of COVID, and they've been trying to register for tests and then they've been canceled. And I think I saw that there was 0 testing sites that were going to be available for this upcoming, I believe, October 3rd SAT. And there was only 3 out of the whole state that said they were going, that they've rescheduled. The other ones just are canceled. In my opinion, at this point, if you are a senior, I would not consider testing unless, and even submitting the score too. You might, and I'll give you a little advice here on that too, but I just feel that students could do everything right. They could register for the tests. They could put in additional hours to study for this 4-hour test. And there's been instances in the country where students have shown up and they were notified by a sign on the door that it has been canceled. But we're seeing tests being canceled left and right. They have tests scheduled throughout the rest of the fall into the winter. Obviously with deadlines about to start, in my opinion, I would focus, if you're a student, on what you can control. And I would focus on your applications. The UCs, as you can tell here, most of them aren't even allowing you to submit a test. There are a few test optional. They're going to put more emphasis on your personal insight questions. And obviously, the grades have always been one of the major factors in that decision. A lot of students have had, their schools go to pass, no pass during last spring. And a lot of students are asking, how is that going to affect my evaluation? And I think that even though I pulled this from the UC website, this is in general is a standard across college universities. The fact is, we're not going to hold it against a student for something they couldn't control. And as you can see here, that the classes, obviously, they're not going to put any weight to a pass or not pass or to affect the GPA, but they will allow students who have passed a course to fulfill the A2G requirements here. So again, in general, college admission counselors have souls. They're the college of admission for a reason. They're looking for reasons to admit you, and they're not going to hold it against you for something that obviously was out of their control. We mentioned the common application earlier, and they have agreed over the summer to add an additional essay prompt, because prior to that, they essentially felt that a lot of students are going to spend the personal statement focusing on their experience with COVID. And in many ways, we're all going through this together, and it's not to discount those individuals that have had much harder than other people, but in many ways, we wanted to make sure that let students know, A, that we still want to learn about personal growth through other activities, other experiences they had while in high school prior to COVID, but also, you know, if there was something that significantly stood out in COVID, they wanted to give those families and those students another opportunity to share that, and not just share that as the one shared statement that went to everyone here. So this is a 250-word prompt that students can choose to answer. And in my opinion, there's going to be a lot of students writing on COVID. So just keep that overall in mind. You know, if you write on I'll give you the advice on writing a personal statement that kind of more of my mentor that I'll share in a little bit has shared, that common personal statements generally have great personal statements generally tend to have at least one of three characteristics: uncommon language, they have an uncommon topic, or they make uncommon connections. So, you know, if you think about it, common topics possibly for this year are going to be COVID-19. So if you can avoid some of those common topics for your main personal statement, I would definitely try to do so. And if you really want to share something, do it in this supplement. But going back to the other two, there's obviously students who could also just write very eloquently, and some people are blessed with that gift. The most control I think a student has to make their essay go from good to great is to make uncommon connections between a personal value, different experiences through the personal statement. So I'll share a good resource with you afterwards. Okay. So that is just overall, I think, a lot of information and background, I know, on the college application systems, deadlines, terminology, I think are going to be important. There's going to be some other topics that I feel that I might be able to add value here tonight just by briefly mentioning some things, and I have resources afterwards to share that I'll share. But I talk to students a lot. They come into my office, or I talk over Zoom recently, and they're like, look, this is the schools I'm applying to. And when I say UCs, it's like I'm applying to UCs, a couple of privates, and I look at those admission percentages, and that is not diversifying. That, in my opinion, isn't necessarily a very balanced list. I'm going to show you some techniques that I think that could help. As you can see, with us having a really highly ranked state system here with the UCs in the state of California, when I tell students and families that the national acceptance rate across all college universities, public and private, is 66%, they think I'm lying. But honestly, it is. We have some of the best public schools, and they've been highly touted for years, but they have gotten more and more selective. And I'm not going to go into the main reasons why that's happening here, because that's a whole different presentation. But as you can tell, there are a lot of great schools out there, and overall, they're not all as highly selective as you may think. So a lot of families are like, Chuck, how many schools should I apply to? I wouldn't recommend students applying more than 12. However, it doesn't mean you have to apply to 12. In general, I see most students apply to 9 to 12, and part of that is also this number has kind of grown over the years because of the common application, and it is easier to apply to more schools. But in general, I think diversifying a student's list is very, very important between reach, target, and likely institutions. So I'm going to show at the end what kind of the UC academic profile looks like. But in general, if you're ever wondering the academic profile for any college or university, Google is your best tool. So it could be any college. You could just say Purdue University 2019-20 academic profile. And what it does in general is it gives you a lot of information on the number of applicants, number of acceptance students, number of students who decided to come. And they give the mean 50% data. Generally, pre-COVID, was giving GPA and also test scores and any other important information they feel they want to share. These profiles, they generally have some of the same information, but they're displayed differently. But you never want to just only apply to reach institutions, and I classify those schools that have an acceptance rate at 25% or lower. In many ways, those, when you get into like the Stanfords or the Ivy Leagues, those 4.5% to 9% schools, I consider those wildcard schools. There are so many students with perfect GPAs, perfect test scores that are denied each year. Those institutions, if you look at the top 50 on U.S. News World Reports, which is always an interesting way that we rank schools. That's another topic altogether. But if you just consider those schools are the only ones that were deemed worthy to educate students, which is definitely not true, they wouldn't even have enough spots to have all the valedictorians and salutatorians at the high schools in the country. So who's to say that those students aren't brighter? They're not going to have good options. The fact is that schools look to shape their profile, shape their admissions class each year across many different factors, across many different majors, backgrounds, talents. There's institutional priorities that a lot of times students and families don't know about. Perhaps they've invested in a new electrical engineering lab, so perhaps they're admitting more electrical engineers one year, but a couple years later on, they're not. So it does change year in and year out. But target institutions is where a student who's a senior has the GPA in the past test scores that if you were just considering those two things, they were right within that mid 50 percentile. So obviously the reach institutions, those particular institutions, I always encourage students to definitely shoot for the stars and put themselves out there. And for some, it could be the fact that schools are either just wild cards or perhaps their academic profile is slightly below what their mid 50 percentile is. And again, 3 to 4 schools for each of these. The likely schools is, in general, the student who is applying exceeds the mid 50 percentile academic rating. And I really feel that's where you're going to see a lot of good merit-based scholarship opportunities there. But the thing that is important is not to apply to school just because you can or someone told you to. It's because that you have 3 to 4 core values that you'll never waver upon, and that all of these institutions have a majority of these things. So it could be something like, I'm going to be, one of my core values could be I covet having a strong relationship with the professor early on, maybe first or second year, or perhaps having the ability to add a multiple of minors to my major and study multiple disciplines. So there are more factors besides just the fact, can I get in? Is, are you going to be happy at that school? Are you going to thrive? So every school that your son or daughter applies to should be a school they would be happy to attend if admitted, because part of this process is they may be denied. It's going to happen. If they apply to schools, it happens all the time. They put themselves out there for one of those reach schools, even some of the target schools. They could be denied, and they could have done everything right. It just has to do with those institutional priorities that particular year, things beyond their control. But if they put all the eggs in those reach baskets or the target baskets, and they don't have some likely institutions on the list to give them options, it can be a very frustrating process. But in general, through the college research process, they're going to be finding things about those particular college universities that they would be happy to attend if admitted. And again, you know, these are the three main things that I find: academic and social, but also financial fit. It needs to be part of the conversation throughout this search process. Shifting gears into an exciting topic is financial aid. Again, I'm not going to go through everything here. The big things to know is everybody that might want to be considered for merit or need-based aid needs to fill out at least one form, the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. They made some changes a few years ago where they put the deadline early, or the application opening earlier, for October 1st. It used to be January 1st. And it used to be the prior year financial information. And that turned out to be some issues with families. So to make it more accessible, to make more people apply, they did what they call prior year. So for this year, students will be asked to supply information from their parents or guardians for 2017. And what it determines is the expected family contribution. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've never met a family that once this calculation through the federal government comes out and it says, okay, let's just say number $10,000. This is what we feel, the federal government, yet $10,000 you should be able to provide your son or daughter each year for school. I've never met a family to say, you know what, they're right on, I got that. Or yeah, that sounds fair. You know, there's not a lot of clarity within the process. It is something that all colleges and universities do at least require the FAFSA form. And in general, that expected family contribution is going to be shared with schools that students put on the FAFSA. So you can put up 10 schools. And essentially what the process goes for the schools that you share your FAFSA information to, if your son or daughter is admitted to one of those schools, usually with it being an earlier deadline now, a lot of schools have been able to provide financial aid packages or financial aid notifications 3 to 4 weeks after an admission letter goes out. But I would always encourage you to apply early, especially sometimes students forget to apply. Sometimes they add a school late and it's in the spring. Keep in mind, you know, when colleges admit their class, they're sending out admissions letters to more than what they know will come to actually matriculate to their campus. So they're factoring in all of that when they're making their financial aid award. So there's been a lot of instances where I've worked with families that could have been eligible not only for need, but good merit-based aid, but because they were late to the game filling out the FAFSA and they take some time to get these organizations talking to each other, they weren't able that very first year, especially to take advantage of some of that aid. CSS profile, I'm not going to go into it too much, but there is 400 private schools that do require more financial information. And that is because they have made a commitment in general with their endowment to provide more need-based financial aid. So take, for instance, the $10,000 EFC I mentioned earlier. And let's just say that there's a college out there that has a total cost of attendance of $50,000. And with the EFC showing that your family can contribute $10,000, they look at that, that balance, that total cost of attendance balance being $40,000. And schools that have committed to meet full demonstrated need will actually, through grants, help cover that balance. So needless to say that they want a little bit more information than what the FAFSA does offer. The FAFSA in itself is getting easier to fill out. The CSS profile, it asks more information beyond basic income. That prior year, it asks more about assets. They want to definitely make sure they ask more questions to determine the family's need. The thing is, especially if you're looking at early decision, early action, for those schools that require the CSS profile, it is different than the FAFSA, where sometimes with the FAFSA, you might be able to get away with a regular decision school applying in December or early January, although I recommend as early as possible. It does open October 1st. The CSS profile may have different deadlines depending on the schools that are there. So it is something that if you are applying to a school that requires CSS profile, it will show on the financial aid website, and you need to jump on that early. everyone asks me about other opportunities for third-party scholarships. I definitely value this resource because there's a lot of great things out there. I know even just within the city of Long Beach, there are many organizations that give back to students where they might be in smaller increments. There are definitely some scholarships out there that I would definitely make sure that students take advantage of this after the majority of their applications are taken care of, because in my opinion, the best way to actually maximize merit-based scholarships is actually developing and curating a well thought out college list. Merit-based scholarships through a college universities tend to be larger than these other third-party scholarships. But the thing I'll just warn you on, there's some not scammers or people that just trying to make some extra money, and they'll say, hey, you know what, I'll do the work for you through FastWeb or another sort of database system. Just pay me $50 and I'll help you send you a scholarship list. And essentially what they're doing is they're asking you for the information that you would have to provide to FastWeb or another website as well. So you should never have to pay for a scholarship list. So remember, this is going to be sent to you, so I'm not going to go through everything in the Cal Grant, but the great thing about living in the state of California is the fact that for a lot of families, the Cal Grant is a financial resource that has been time in and time out a great resource for students to help finance colleges. 3.0 GPA is needed. It's for 4 years only. So that's important to kind of keep in mind. There are impaction issues with some of the CSUs and UCs in that it's taking longer to graduate for some majors. So keep in mind this will cover 4 years. And this is the breakdown. If you attend a Cal State, a UC, or California private college, there are different increment amounts that is allowed for you. One thing that is on the radar too is a middle class scholarship. So it is not a set in stone amount, but if you have a family income up to $184,000 and are going to be attending a UC or Cal State, a range of 10 to 40% tuition scholarship could be available for you. And the thing is, you got to actually put a UC or Cal State on your FAFSA to generate the process for a Cal Grant. But you can kind of see the income limits versus the size of the family that's there. And there's some other deadlines, like the counselor has to do to send in the registration, the class registration for the student in the fall, and you have to fill out this information by March. But it's out there. But overall, I just want to, a lot of times because we have the Cal Grant, because we are offered lower tuition than non-residents in California, a lot of times people think that it is significantly cheaper to go in-state, and sometimes it is. But I also talk to a lot of families that maybe are out of that income range for the Cal Grant, or perhaps are looking at some of the impaction issues. And impaction essentially is that there are not enough spots for qualified applicants in the state of California to allow admission into a Cal State or UC, or perhaps it's going to take longer to get the required courses to graduate. So in many ways, I just want to put out there the fact that sometimes it can be maybe just slightly more, or perhaps could be evenly financially the same price to attend either a private college, which doesn't have in-state or out-of-state tuition rates, but also out-of-state college universities that really just don't have that impaction issue at all. A lot of times too, some of the private colleges have more endowments that might be able to offer more merit-based or need-based aid too. So the thing about it is this: every college or university in the United States is required to, on their website and on their print publications, to put the total cost of attendance to attend that. And when I say total cost of attendance, that is the number you should be asking for, not just tuition, because there is associated costs with housing, food, books, travel. Students want to go off campus a couple times a week, so it could be those lattes, or Starbucks, Jamba Juice, whatever it is. There is costs associated with living on a campus. So finding out the total cost of attendance is important, but kind of keep in mind too that you'll never get what possible merit or need-based aid could be available to you unless you actually apply and get admitted. But that's why every college university has what is called a net price calculator. Again, going to your friend Google, you can go to any Google search and just put the college university and put net price calculator, and it will take you, and essentially you'll fill out some basic information that you would fill on the FAFSA. And it generally gives you a ballpark figure of what it would cost based on the merit, meaning grades, the academic performance of the student, but also the financial situation at home, what it would cost to attend a particular college or university if admitted. So it should definitely be one of the conversation starters. And I encourage, there's nothing worse, in my opinion, working with a family, working with a student that has put in so much time and effort, and a lot of stress goes into applying to college, and to actually be admitted to a college university and then finding out later on that it's just financially not attainable for them. So using the net price calculator that is required by law for every college to have, use that as part of your initial college search process. Okay, I'm just gonna go and just show you what I'm sending to you. I might highlight one resource on the actual page, but you're going to have these hyperlinks. I put them kind of in alphabetized order. I didn't say that right. It's late. But let me go through here. A lot of students and parents are wondering, hey, what are some ways during the COVID era could perhaps my son or daughter get involved to maybe highlight and shine a little bit more? Keep in mind, college universities understand the limitations with COVID that students have. They understand that not everyone's at school. Some schools are starting to open up, but we understand that might have been a gap what is offered, but there are some virtual opportunities out there. I think this is a good article by Grown and Flown about virtual volunteer opportunities. UpKey is a great new resource that are partnering with Paratum scholars for career exploration, job shadowing, and internships, and they even offer that through college. Perhaps obtaining more knowledge in a particular field of interest through a free college course through Coursera. I'm a big fan just because I have a relationship and my nonprofit is hosting this challenge. The Diamond Challenge for high school entrepreneurs is the #1 ranked youth entrepreneurship competition. So think of Shark Tank for high school students. It's a global venture concept competition that has business and social innovation tracks that require a team of high school entrepreneurs to essentially tackle a world problem, tackle a local community problem, and you learn a lot of great skills about entrepreneurship through the process. So diamondchallenge.org is a great virtual resource. Application system and deadlines, again, I highlighted generally all of these here. I think it's important to know, most of us are, unless someone joined that isn't in the Long Beach area, to kind of know about the Long Beach College Promise. So definitely go and research that as far as our commitment to students through the community college system here within this city of Long Beach, and then also what options to transfer into Cal State Long Beach are afterwards. It's really a good promise we have with our residents. Common application. The College-Wise is a private consulting firm. Again, they put out this resource guide every year. This is a shortened URL, but essentially a step-by-step guide each year on different things to focus on. I mean, I get updated each year. I look at the guide, but when I work with families, one-on-one, I usually am helping them navigate that process. But for those that just need a guide to get through this, that's they have some questions, it's a great free resource. For anyone that's looking to read, I think if you had to choose one, I've read all three. The middle one by Frank Bruni, he is a well-renowned writer. Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be is a great read, especially if there's anyone that has juniors, even seniors, but it may be too late to kind of read to consider for the college search process. In general, again, our friend Google, if you want to know what a particular college or university is doing in response to COVID, again, putting the college university in Google and saying COVID-19 updates, they'll generally be able to track that particular university as far as number of positive cases, what the policies are on that particular college or university, but these are the 3 links there that you'll have access to. I want to highlight this great resource, Coursera. It is a free resource. It is a website for students who are beginning the college search process to actually get on. It takes about 20 minutes to complete the assessment with Coursera, but they use gamification in a way to highlight many different qualities or aspects a university or college might have. And it asks the student if it is a must-have, if it is I don't care, it would be nice, no way, and essentially produces a 3 to 4 page report that a student can have and can visually look at, look, these are important to me. And the thing is, I usually, when I start beginning with the student, I have them do this course audit report that kind of gives me an idea of initially at that time might be important to them. But I always tell students there's no such thing as a perfect college, and throughout the whole process of working through me, either through one of my Paratum Scholars programs or one-on-one, is, look, what are your core values based on the list? What are those 3 to 4 things that you'll never waver upon that you're going to make sure that every college you apply to has? And I like this as a free personality website too, but there's a lot of great free resources too. Naviance in general is, if it's at your college or high school, students will be utilizing that as well, and they do have some of these features. But we have gone remotely as well, college and university. So there are some good resources out there for virtual college fair opportunities. I like to highlight the colleges that change lives. It's a group of about 42 different schools that normally people haven't heard of, are in different areas of the country, but the alumni have said that their experiences on their colleges, campuses have just changed their lives. And it usually focuses on either a mentorship or relationship that the student makes that very first semester with students or a professor, or it's the fact that they're able to get integral experience through a meaningful research project, or perhaps internship that extended over a period of multiple semesters. So definitely check out ctcl.org. I'm part of the Regional Missions Counselors of California. There are over 170 representatives that either live in the state of California or actually cover California as one of their primary territories. They're full-blown admission counselors, not recruiters, but admission counselors that make admissions decisions that literally are on your time zone, are here to help develop relationships, but their universities are not in the state of California. The last one here is a resource that's just been floating around that there's close to 1,000 universities that literally has hyperlinks on how to connect with their virtual visits, virtual resources here. So you can definitely spend a lot of time with that last link there. Links to the UC Personal Insight questions to kind of find out what the prompts are. In general, around, if there is any juniors in the room, around June or July, you'll hear if the prompts are going to be remaining the same from the previous year. Same for the Common App. But I will let you know, I've had many interactions with Ethan Sawyer, who is AKA the college essay guy. He has been instrumental in providing great resources to my nonprofit. And then also, he has just a lot of great blog posts. He has some great podcasts. He essentially is the guru, in my opinion, and the person I turn to for college essay advice and methodologies. I've presented a couple times at Poly High School here. I used to live right around the corner from Poly High School a time ago. This last one here, if you're a senior and you're looking to apply to different colleges and you want to find quickly what is required essay-wise, the Eddy by C Alpha is a Chrome extension tool that allows you, if you use Chrome, to search, put a name of a college university, and it will just quickly populate what is required. Usually they have that updated by mid-August, so it should be good to go. Financial aid, it's all there. We kind of talked about that. If you know anyone, if there's anyone here that represents and they are a dreamer, there is obviously a information resources and application for financial aid because we are friendly for dreamers in California. Western Undergraduate Exchange, very quickly, it's a good neighbor policy that public universities along the West Coast have with each other. Not all colleges and universities on the West Coast offer every major or even participate in this, but it is good to know that instead of paying full out-of-state price, there are colleges, public colleges and universities in different states that do offer essentially almost 1.5% or 1.5 times of the in-state residency for that particular state. So in some ways you can save some money. There are some major restrictions. Some colleges that are WUI, if you ever heard the acronym, that's what they're referring to. They are, some offer all their majors as WUI eligible. Sometimes it is only specific majors, so certainly know what that is. This last link here under financial aid, it has a couple of the different databases that are updated each year. Again, this is probably a lot of information, but if you ever want a concrete list of about 400 schools or so that dictate how much need versus merit-based aid on average they award last year. That certainly is available there. You can kind of, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just need to either download it as a PDF or as a spreadsheet. I recommend a spreadsheet so you can filter. It also has on there a data. All this data is reported by any college that receives a financial aid from the government is required to do certain reporting. So all this is based on this reporting. It actually shows admission rates based on if you apply early decision versus regular decision. There is some distinct advantages to apply early for some schools. I'll let the data do the talking there. However, you can kind of see that there are some no differences at all, but this is something that this particular group puts out every year. Testing, if you ever want to geek out on testing, I don't know if it's going to come back prevalently as it was before. I think in the California system, it's probably not going to be as prevalent, but that doesn't mean other college universities may have it. Compass Education Group is who I rely on each year. They put out the Compass testing guide. The first two links here, obviously, where you can register for ACT or SAT, but also AP is handled through College Board 2. And I am not going to go through every single one of these, but I did the liberty of pulling the admissions profile for all the UCs. As you can see, these are the number of applicants, admits, the overall admit rate, and every school is reporting stuff differently in here. As you can see, some of them are putting what the high school GPA is, what the test score is from last year. So I'm just going to go through these because this will be sent to you. And, you know, if you're still with me, because I know there's a lot of information and it can really confuse a lot of families here. And, you know, that's why I started the Paratum Scholars. I've had to pivot some of my programs. I'm reimagining what my hybrid in-person and digital curriculum is going to be in our COVID era, because I'm not sure how much longer this is going to last, or I'm not sure. So I've had to stop my hybrid in-person digital curriculum, and I've only been working one-on-one with families at this point, but I'm reimagining a total online program of what it might be. But in general, I really let students take ownership, empower themselves to kind of take control of the discovery process, empowering them to focus not only on the right college, but the right path in life. I'll focus a lot on happiness. I want them to hopefully have options that are great here within the state, but I also encourage students to consider stuff that might be initially out of their comfort zone, perhaps a different part of the West Coast and perhaps a different part of the United States or the world here. But in general, my mission in life, I feel, is just to help make this process a little bit easier, take a little bit of the stress away, and hopefully this presentation, the resources that will be sent to you, has done that. Because I know that I didn't have this going through this, and I know there's a lot of students in here that don't as well. So with that being said, I'm just going to let Gina Will let me know if there's any questions that might have been asked. I'll do my best to answer them, and obviously individual questions regarding your own son or daughters, it may be hard without having some context. So just let me know what these may be. And this is the contact information I have for my website for the Paratum Scholars. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization since 2017, and obviously my contact email as well.
Thank you so much, Chuck. That was really informative. We actually do have quite a few questions, so I'm going to get to a couple of them. So we want to know, how much impact does having 2 children in college have for the FAFSA application? This person has a college freshman and a high school senior at the moment.
It definitely does have an impact here, and that's one of the questions that the net price calculator will ask in filling out that basic information on a website for college financial services, but obviously it will ask you on the FAFSA and also on the CSS profile.
Okay. This person also wants to know, if for the middle class scholarship, is it submitted automatically through FAFSA, or do you apply separately for the middle class scholarship?
So there are certain requirements for the Cal Grant. So that is actually with the Cal Grant.
Cal Grant.
So if you do exceed the initial Cal Grant, there are many different components of the Cal Grant. There's Cal Grant A, B, and C. B and C have to do, most people qualify for the Cal Grant A. But there are income limitations. That's why they brought out that middle income scholarship. But you do have to put you have to attend a UC or Cal State. You have to put at least a UC or Cal State on the FAFSA when you apply to generate the conversation. So all the financial information goes to the systems. And there's some conversation. So the high school counselor has to send out a schedule in the fall to the Cal Grant organization, and you have to meet the GPA requirements of a 3.0. So, awesome. And again, it varies on the family. It could be a sliding scale. I'm not involved with that process too much, seeing that, but in general, I have a feeling that, if you are exceeding the Cal Grant A, but not quite at 184,000, they might offer you more. It could be that they offer more to a UC versus a Cal State because UCs cost more. Going back initially to the FAFSA question too, one thing that they generally don't take into consideration is the cost of living in the state, unfortunately.
I see. Yeah, that's very true. Okay, so another question about financial aid. A lot of questions about financial aid, of course, but some people make maybe a little bit too much to qualify for FAFSA, such a fun word to say, acronym, but obviously tuition is expensive. Where do people go for loans if they don't qualify for the FAFSA loans?
Sure. Well, the thing about it is applying, everyone that is either a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident is actually eligible for federally backed loans, Stafford loans, and there's different loan amounts that a first year, second, third, or fourth year undergraduate student is eligible for, and applying to the FAFSA. So keep in mind, the FAFSA is just what they require it for the Cal Grant, but if you want to be eligible for any student loans through the federal government, which generally tend to have favorable not only interest terms, but also repayment terms, you're going to have to fill out the FAFSA, and you're going to have to fill it out every year. So keep in mind also, if you are eligible for need-based aid, but I encounter this problem a lot with families that maybe for the first couple of years, they may be entrepreneurs, they have their own business, and they're based on their business and the way it is a couple different years, they might be eligible for some need-based aid or for a different amount. But if the business does well the junior, senior year, they may not be eligible for as much need or merit-based aid from that particular university or college. So keep that in mind. The FAFSA is something that you'll fill out each year. There are private loans out there as well. They don't have some of the repayment forgiveness terms that others may have. Like, for instance, during COVID, the federal government has allowed everyone to forgo any interest during this COVID time, all throughout the end of the year. It started in March. And even if you're on a plan where your loans would be forgiven for doing public service loan forgiveness programs, they even counted those months that you normally would make a payment against that program too. So in some ways, I know that private lenders weren't offering that, or you'd have to individually go to them. So.
Okay, a few more questions. So applying for scholarships, I mean, it's just a little bit vague, but are there basic qualifications that help people apply for scholarships, or is it very specific?
There are some unique, fun scholarships out there. I'll tell you what, one I saw a couple of years ago is write an essay. A lot of them have to do with writing a personal statement or an essay, maybe submitting your GPA. Some might be specific around an interest a student may have. There was one unique, fun one that it was a $500 scholarship, and all you had to do to be eligible for it was introduce someone over the age of 60 to the internet and write something on that. So there's some interesting, there's some fun ones out there. I highly encourage everyone to save every draft of every essay they might write, not only now, but even in college, because I find that the students that get to college, the process just changes. They're finding out how living as a young adult is. They're on their own. There's actually endowed scholarships that current students are eligible for that you can apply to as well. And a lot of times these deadlines don't really coincide with some of the deadlines that the academic work has. So always keep these essays that they may have, because it might be, tell me a little bit, you know, in general, looking back of where you were telling someone about yourself or an experience you had, you might be able to use it as a conversation starter to kind of rewrite and recycle an essay. Another way too, and this isn't best for everyone, I know, but there are some colleges and universities that allow students their second, third, and fourth year to be resident advisors on a campus. They will be in charge of programming for other first-year students in the dorms. They'll be in charge to make sure they're following the rules, so that everyone socially and emotionally are doing well, make sure they're getting along. And I honestly think that also cultivates a lot of great skills that employers are looking at too. But a lot of times for these students that are resident advisors, a lot of times their housing costs and also food is covered. So that's a significant cost too. And what I would encourage students to do is to ask their own resident advisor how they got involved, and just to continue to kind of make a relationship there. And then once the applications begin for that, be one of the first to apply. So.
Great, that's a fantastic tip. Here's a unique question. Do you have an opinion on whether or not going to a liberal arts college has more advantages than perhaps going to a UC school?
Well, in many regards, a UC is a liberal arts institution, where you are going to be required to take some of the general core education classes across many different disciplines. A lot of, I find a good value in attending a liberal arts institution, and it just also depends on the size, what type of other things might be a good academic and social fit. But I speak a lot on the future of work, and I also have on my, if you go to my YouTube page, for the Paratum Scholars, I just put up a presentation, it's about 45 minutes, on the undecided student and how to use career exploration in the college search, because there are so many jobs that 10 years that we have now that 10 years ago we didn't have. Social media manager, there are, you know, different ways that we're integrating with technology that I think liberal arts institutions can teach a lot of core competency skills that can be transferable across many different disciplines, especially as work is changing. So critical reading, critical thinking, working well with other people from different backgrounds and cultures, humanics, so to speak, systems thinking, that in general, a lot of liberal arts colleges and universities have to offer. So definitely wouldn't discount going to a liberal arts college. It doesn't mean that if your son and daughter goes to a liberal arts college, doesn't mean that they're going to come live in your basement after they graduate. So
it could happen to any of us. Okay, we have another great question here. So if somebody is a junior in high school right now, should they start the application process now? I mean, or when should they start applying for universities?
So good question. So in general, the UC application won't open until August their freshman year, or their senior year, August 1st. Same for a lot of the common application. I wouldn't recommend, if you're a junior, even though you could create your own common application account, you could even put some stuff over the summer in there, but they reset the application generally August 1st. What you can do is begin to compile, you can look at the essays. I would recommend, if you have extra time, start looking at the personal statements on the common application. Look at the personal insight questions. I gave you the link here on this resource guide. What are the 4 questions that really resonate with you? And spend your time answering these questions thoughtfully. I feel this process is very self-reflective. And up until COVID, students were going a million miles an hour, doing everything possible, making sure they got 100 hours of volunteer and involved in every club, organization, taking every AP. And I think in some ways, COVID has been really good in the fact that we've been able to slow down a bit, find out, and hopefully reconnect with things that we really care about, family, passions, talents. Excuse me, let me just stop the share right here. And it takes a lot to stop and to rethink about your experiences in high school and how you're going to articulate them in this process here. So if you are a junior, college research is honestly what I would have you focus on. And there's many different factors of learning what colleges may offer academically, socially. Do you like an urban, rural, suburban campus feel? And once COVID gets a little bit better here, there's actually many different types of colleges and universities in the state of California. You could even just go walk around by yourself and actually determine what one feels right for you. So.
Very true. One more question specifically about you. What is your capacity to counsel on universities outside of the U.S.? I know the answer to this. But...
Say that one more time, Gina, I'm sorry.
Yes. So what is your capacity to counsel on universities outside of the U.S.?
I have a lot of colleagues in the regional missions councils of California that represent international schools. And I think that a lot of students should either A, consider an international school or even a gap year. It just depends on the school. A lot of it is what type of academic environment that school offers. A lot of international schools may not allow a student to come in to explore. They may want a student who is already focused knowing business or the health sciences is the route they want to take, because a lot of international schools don't require a lot of the general education requirements. And in fact, in some ways, not only can it be on par financially to attend an international school because tuition is on par with what our UCs and Cal States are, but sometimes you can graduate early in 3 years from an international school. So I actually work with a lot of international students too. Most recently, I worked for someone from Pakistan that actually is at the University of Toronto now. So yeah, I've had experience there.
That was our last question. Chuck, thank you so much for this amazing presentation. It seems like we've gotten some great feedback, and I hope you guys learned a lot. I certainly did. Wish I knew you when I was applying to college, most definitely. And I just want to say to all that attended, I wish you the best of luck to you or your students, and reach out to Chuck if you have questions. He offers a fantastic service, and I do think that you are a valued person in this community. So thank you all. The BHCA thanks you, and don't forget, become a member. Enjoy, you guys. This all the presentation will be emailed to you, so those resources will be in your hands. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you so much.